Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on an incredibly exciting journey. We are going to bridge the gap between this ancient, thousands of years old practice and the absolute cutting edge of modern neurochemical hacking. We're diving deep into the hard science and the futuristic technology behind yoga. Right off the bat, let's tackle a perception that's been out there for a long time. Is yoga really just glamorous stretching? Is it just for people who want to touch their toes while wearing expensive pants? Or is it actually a scientifically proven neurochemical intervention? Well, today we're throwing out the woo-woo and we're looking strictly at the clinical data that proves it's definitely the latter. And honestly, this science is fueling a massive global shift right now. We're talking about over 120 million people who now rely on virtual yoga classes as a primary practice. The market itself has completely skyrocketed to over $100 billion. People aren't just doing this as a temporary backup anymore. It's become an absolutely fundamental tool for managing modern life. But here's the catch. With all that massive growth comes a ton of noise. Have you ever shown up to a class expecting a gentle, relaxing stretch and ended up completely dripping in sweat? Or maybe the exact opposite? So how do you actually know which style is going to work for you, your specific body, and your personal goals? Let's figure that out in Section 1, Finding Your Yoga Style and Navigating the Autonomic Nervous System. So first things first, yoga is definitely not a monolith. Different practices act kind of like entirely different software updates for your brain and body. To really get this, we have to look at how our nervous system works. For us to function effectively, our autonomic nervous system needs balance. On one side, you have the sympathetic nervous system. That's your classic fight or flight mode. Dynamic, active styles like vinyasa or yang yoga stimulate this side, which trains your cardiovascular system and builds up your resilience to stress. But on the flip side, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and regenerate mode. Slower styles like yin or hatha trigger this side. They slow your heartbeat right down and actually give your body the energy it needs to repair and heal itself. Let's map that out practically so you can see what I mean. If you're looking for discipline and rigorous sequencing, Ashtanga is your match. Bikram uses intense heat to build endurance. Vinyasa is super fluid. It keeps your heart rate up for cardiovascular fitness. Now, all three of those are highly sympathetic activations. But if you drop down to Hatha, you're getting gentle, static poses for basic relaxation. And Yin? Well, yin involves holding poses for up to 5 minutes to release deep connective tissues and force you into that parasympathetic healing state. The key takeaway here is you've got to identify your goal and then choose the specific biological trigger that matches it. Which brings us to Section 2, the neuroscience of yoga and the clinical data behind the calm. All right, now that we know how to trigger these systems, let's peek under the hood and look at what's actually happening in your brain. It's time to pivot away from just anecdotal evidence and introduce the hard medical data behind these ancient practices. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept called the vagal GABA theory. So GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, is a crucial neurotransmitter in your brain that basically acts like a natural chill pill. It promotes calm and reduces anxiety. The vagal GABA theory proposes that specific yoga postures combined with breathing actually stimulate your vagal nerves, which are the main nerves of your parasympathetic system. When they get stimulated, these nerves send signals straight up to your brain, causing a literal, measurable increase in GABA. And we can see this exact mechanism in action. Just look at the data from a randomized controlled trial that analyzed individuals with major depressive disorder, or MDD. At their baseline, their thalamic GABA levels were remarkably low compared to healthy controls. But after a 12-week yoga intervention, magnetic resonance spectroscopy scans showed a significant, literal neurochemical increase of GABA in the brains of the depressed group. Think about that for a second. They structurally changed their own brain chemistry. And the clinical outcome of that chemical shift? It is absolutely profound. After those 12 weeks, the depressive symptoms in the MDD group decreased so much that their mood and anxiety scores practically matched those of non-depressed individuals. This Torah Scholar study gives us concrete, undeniable evidence that yoga serves as an incredibly powerful, scientifically proven therapy, or at least an augmentation, for treating mental health conditions. Let's look at Section 3, Measuring Physiological Stress Relief, and the hard metrics of healing. Okay, so we've seen how it rewires the brain, right? But let's shift our focus to the rest of the body for a minute. Drawing on a massive meta-analysis of 42 separate studies, the physiological improvements are just incredible. Regular practice actually reduced both evening and waking cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone. It lowered resting heart rates, it decreased fasting blood glucose, and it even lowered bad cholesterol. But honestly, one of the most striking findings was the decrease in ambulatory systolic blood pressure. Basically, what that means is that throughout the day, as these people were just walking around living their normal lives, their hearts were literally working less frantically. Why? Because the yoga had fundamentally improved the regulation of their sympathetic nervous system. To understand how that works on a mechanical level, listen to how senior yoga teacher Marla Apt describes it when talking about hypertension. She says, introverted asanas, like supported forward bends, cool the brain and pacify the sympathetic nervous system. It's brilliant. By simply modifying a pose, like resting your head on a block during a forward bend, you are physically commanding your body's pressure receptors to calm down. You're mechanically signaling your nervous system to safely lower that high blood pressure. So how do we apply this? Section 4, building a home practice, and the psychology of habit. All right, the macro science is undeniably clear at this point, but how do we turn all that into micro actions? How do you actually integrate these amazing clinical benefits into your busy day-to-day life? Well, turning these benefits into reality requires a little behavioral psychology. See, a lot of us try to start a new routine using sheer willpower. But willpower is a limited resource. It depletes super quickly as you make decisions throughout your day, which, let's face it, almost inevitably leads to failure. What you need instead, according to the experts at SequenceViz, is why power. This happens when you connect your choices to a much deeper purpose. If you attach your practice to a deep personal reason, like, wanting the energy to play with your kids or needing to finally manage that chronic back pain, your chances of success just completely skyrocket. So here is a highly logical, 3-step psychological framework for building that unstoppable daily habit. Step 1, identify that why power we literally just talked about. Step 2, hook the new practice to an existing daily habit. For example, if you always without fail brush your teeth at 7 a.m., hook your 10 minutes of yoga right to the end of that exact action. You want to make it automatic. And step 3, reduce the activation energy required to start. Now, what does reducing activation energy actually mean in the real world? Well, it literally means putting your yoga mat right in your way so it's actually easier to just step onto it than it is to walk around it. It means laying out your workout clothes the night before. Honestly, if it takes you even 20 seconds of searching to find your iPad to load up a routine, you are going to lose the motivation. You have to remove the friction entirely. Finally, Section 5, the future of yoga tech, building a studio in a pocket. As we transition into the future, technology is really stepping in to make removing that friction easier than ever before. The landscape of home practice has evolved drastically. By 2026, we're essentially looking at a true studio right in your pocket. One of the coolest breakthroughs is biosyncing. Modern apps won't just ask you how you feel, they seamlessly integrate with your wearables to constantly monitor your heart rate variability, or HRV. By predictively reading your body's own data, the app knows exactly what your nervous system needs at any given moment. So if it detects really high physiological stress after a brutal day at work, it's absolutely not going to let you do a vigorous power vinyasa class. Instead, it'll automatically load up a restorative yin session to force your body back into a healing state. It's like having a nervous system bodyguard. And where you practice is getting an upgrade too. With a massive rise of XR, or extended reality environments, practitioners can literally escape their cluttered, noisy living rooms. You just put on a lightweight headset or use spatial projection, and suddenly you're practicing on a virtual mountain peak or watching a perfect pink cloud sunset. It completely isolates you from all the distractions of home, radically deepening your emotional immersion and focus. And there are other fascinating AI innovations that have matured to support this whole ecosystem. We've got AI-native computer vision that uses your device's camera to read your body's landmarks and correct your posture in real time, literally just like a live teacher would. We have voice and gesture controls, so you never have to touch your phone with sweaty hands again. And perhaps most importantly, we're seeing massive corporate integration. Today, over 70% of Fortune 500 companies have integrated these intelligent, hands-free personal coaches directly into their corporate wellness strategies to actively prevent employee burnout. So let's wrap this up. We've seen the ancient roots of this practice. We've looked at the hard clinical data proving its power over things like depression and hypertension. We've explored the behavioral psychology of actually building the habit, and we've glimpsed the futuristic tech, making it all completely seamless. The science is all there, just waiting for you to use it. So I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. How will you use your why power to biohack your own nervous system today?